So they made a movie called The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and while it wasn't insert pun here, I really tried to like it. As a fan of the original, seemingly one of the few, I had high expectations for this one. We just came off Captain America 2. The original Spider-Man 2 is arguably the best in the series, and while sequels aren't always good, this one had one hell of a trailer. Number 1, you dirty stinking spider. The trailer was so good, one might wonder if it was made by a completely different person. You may ask, why would I say that? Well, spoilers ahead. I'm going to play the trailer for you now, and every time a scene that didn't appear in the movie shows, Micro Bunny is going to let you know. By my calculation, which might not be exactly accurate because I'm a rabbit, that was like half the trailer. Of course, if you count the epic music and the dialogue that wasn't in the film, you might actually be able to make a pretty strong case for false advertising. This is kind of a problem because the movie painted for us in the trailer has action, adventure, estranged childhood friends reconnecting, actual stakes, and Norman Osborn doing stuff. The film, however, has none of this. It's so disjointed, you'd be forgiven for thinking the director bowed out after production ended. I assume the studio hacked this film into pieces in the editing room. Number 2, why do cartoons handle multiple villains so much better? This isn't to say you couldn't have done all these villains in one film. Just one episode of Spectacular Spider-Man has over 6, and that's only a 20-minute show. Rhino has a glorified cameo, complete with the dignified Paul Giamatti giving his worst unintentionally comedic performance ever. The scene was unnecessary. The bank heist in the intro was enough of a setup. Rhino should have been an after-the-credits stinger, or saved to kick off the third film. Instead, it only serves to take up time that could have been dedicated to Harry's far more interesting story. Let's take a moment to talk about after-the-credits scenes. Anyone who watches comic book films has come to expect one by this point, but this movie doesn't have one. Instead, it has a scene from the new X-Men movie. Now, this makes little sense. Both are Marvel films, but neither franchise has any plans to cross over, and they're both produced by completely different studios. To further confuse us, they actually shot an after-the-credits scene. It gives us a look to what happened to Norman after he died, as he was only in the film for about 3 minutes. If Chris Cooper was actually credited, he might care. Maybe he saw how awful the movie was and demanded his role be cut, leaving us to question why they teased a much bigger Norman story in the trailer. Number 3. Prince Harry, you know we've changed. While on the subject of Osborns, let's talk about Harry. He's actually an interesting character, and I would have liked to see more of him in the film. As the trailer shows, Green Goblin attacks Oscorp at some point, but that doesn't happen in the film. Instead, he doesn't show up until after Gwen Stacy runs Electro over with a car. And then a clock tower conveniently placed next to the power plant is home to an action sequence that is showed to us almost in full during the various trailers. Okay, so if you're a comic book fan, you know why that scene was there. But they spent so little time on it that it's hard to care. As for Harry's motivations, I mean, they were fine. He had a genetic disease, but the issue is how fast it degenerated. I mean, his dad was like, what, 60? Harry's 17 or something like that. It makes no sense that he would go downhill so fast and get desperate so quickly. Plot devices be what they may, some things are inexcusable. For example, the Richard Parker storyline. In a scene that should have just been in the intro of the first movie, we see how Peter's parents die. His badass scientist dad kicks the crap out of a trained assassin and via satellite uploads his research. Then 13 years later, Peter stumbles across it in a subway station and does nothing with it. All we learn is Oscorp betrayed him. Well, duh. And I know, I'm nitpicking here, but what the hell kind of computers are these? If his dad was a scientist, why does he have a train car filled with 90s technology? It was 2001 when he died, if the movie timeline is to be believed. Why are these computers from like 1993? Number 4, the good, it's all bad. Alright, so what did I like about the movie? Well, Peter and Gwen's relationship was done well, as it was in the first movie. I liked Aunt May, though she had little to do in the film, so they made her a nurse for no reason. Spider-Man acts like Spider-Man with the quips, the cough medicine, and the fire helmets, but it isn't enough to snuff out the film's major issues with direction, tone, and never-ending plot threads. Mysteries are nice, and sometimes it's fun for them to carry over from film to film, but when you refuse to answer questions that are still lingering from the first movie, it gets a little annoying after a while. Just tell us already. Number 5, and the useless. You may have noticed that I barely mentioned Electro at all, and that is because literally the entire plot of the film could have happened without him or his horrible dubstep soundtrack. His first scene involves him developing a plot-convenient mental disorder just by being rescued by Spider-Man. His motivation for being bad is that Spider-Man doesn't remember his name. After this, the dubstep soundtrack in his head talks to him, and he starts attacking people and spouting out horrible one-liners like, "Time to blow out my birthday candles." There really isn't much to him beyond that. Sure, there's Oscorp taking credit for his power plant design and forgetting his birthday. That's a big-ticket item with him. Of course, the PhD-holding electrical genius uses no safety precautions at all when repairing an exposed wire. When he goes to jail, he gets tortured by a comical German scientist who sticks a meter in his head that shows how much power he's emitting. Let's be honest here. The only reason he's in the movie at all is so Harry can storm Donald Menken's office and demand Norman's formula. This is something Harry could have done without help. He shows up with a gun well after Electro uses his powers to intimidate a desk and cause Menken to surrender. Either Oscorp security is the worst on the planet, which it might be because Gwen was able to elude their chief of security by making out with her boyfriend in a broom closet, or Harry's gun was enough to get Menken to do what he wanted anyway. So Electro is only in the movie so they can have explosions, which is what the Green Goblin is known for, but I guess they didn't want to be accused of remaking the first film again. Okay, I think I've just about covered it. If you find this review to be disjointed and erratic, then I highly recommend you avoid The Amazing Spider-Man 2. If you enjoyed this review, then I highly recommend you avoid The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I guess what I'm saying is, well, you get the point. For all the potential, it missteps one time too many, and maybe it's the Spider-Man fan inside me, but I truly believe that somewhere out there exists a better cut of this film. Maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter, but hopefully it's without that god-awful soundtrack. So the verdict. On a scale of yeesh, niche, or nosh, it lands a rhino-sized nosh. But what do I know? I'm just a rabbit. This is Review Rabbit reminding you that putting the last shot of your film in the trailer is pretty lame. You want carrots. You need carrots. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and the great Micro Bunny will give you carrots.